Well, good evening, friends. Grace and peace to you, and welcome to our 7th annual Interfaith Gratitude Service. My name is Jenny Yod. I'm the pastor here at Lake Oswego United Church of Christ, and on behalf of our congregation, I want to welcome you to this space, and thank you so much for being here tonight. We are so grateful to be hosting this evening once again with Beit Haverim, with the Muslim Educational Trust, with the Baha'i community, and with the Islamic Bosniaks Education and Cultural Center. As I said, we've had this service for 7 years, and for the past 3 years, the 5 of us have hosted this service together. We gather tonight in the name of God, who we worship by many names, but who calls us together as one family of faith. And in these divisive times that we live in, part of the reason we gather is to be a witness to the power of working and worshiping together. Tonight we also gather because we are all children of our Mother Earth. And as we know, our earth is crying out for care and for compassion, for justice, and for our faithful stewardship. And so tonight we are here to remember that each of our faiths calls us to care for the earth, and that we are here as a community together, committed and ready to recommit to our work for sustainable abundance and for the care of our earth. Finally, just a few housekeeping items. We do have restrooms that are just out these doors and to the right down the hall. And also after our service, everyone is invited to stay for a reception. We'll be sharing some pie, some baklava, and a chance just to get to know each other better. So again, that's just out these doors to the right and all the way down in our fellowship hall. So once again, I want to thank you so much for being here this evening. And now I'd like to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Rabbi Alan Berg.
The desserts seem to get better every year. Just hearing them announced. So, sustainable abundance, what is that? In the Jewish mystical tradition, the world comes into being because God, as pure goodness, has so much goodness, an overabundance of goodness, that overabundance flows into the world and becomes the world. It's the way in the Kabbalah that they speak of the world coming into existence through an overabundance of God's goodness. So what might that be? It's a rather elusive concept. But it seems to me that it's the promise that each of us is so fully capable of doing so much good that we are, as if to ourselves, beyond our own knowing who we are. And it's as if our hands are the hands of God, and our eyes are the eyes of God, and our heart is God's heart in the world. And so we can look at a fearful world, a challenging world, as my dear colleague, Reverend Ott said, but we can imagine very easily that on a night like this, that we could easily create a sustainable abundance of goodness. Welcome from Beit Haverim.
And now, as we begin our service tonight, we will begin just with a word of peace. And if there's anything we need in our world right now, it is a little more peace. And so we begin just by acknowledging one another, seeing each other here in this space. This is a practice that we do each week here at Lake Oswego UCC. And in just a minute, I'll invite you to stand up and to just greet one another with a word or with a gesture of peace. So you can turn and look a neighbor in the eye. You can say the word peace in English, shalom in Hebrew, salam in Arabic. If you're comfortable, you're also welcome to share a gesture, either a handshake, a hug, a hand over your heart, whatever feels comfortable to you and to the person you're greeting. So, friends, tonight, may the peace of God be with you. Please stand and share with one another a sign of the peace.
As one of the most important natural resources to humanity's survival, water has a special place in Jewish tradition, playing a role in nearly every major story in the Bible. Isaac's wife was chosen for him at a well. The baby Moses was saved after Floating down a river, the Israelites were freed when the Red Sea parted. Miriam will forever be remembered by her gift of water to the Jewish people in the desert. Our clean, fresh water supplies and mineral resources are being exhausted by industrial and population growth, and it is vital that we lead in conversation while developing a natural resource. Jewish tradition is long advocated that local and national governments take appropriate measures to remove or reduce the growing threats of pollution and to afford protection in the environment.
Environmental health. The principle of Pekua Nefesh, saving human lives above all else, is our greatest moral obligation. We are taught, "You shall not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor," Leviticus 19:16, and to choose life that you and your descendants may live, Deuteronomy 30:20. It follows then that Jewish values command us to preserve the earth and its varied life for our sake and for generations to come. It is our obligation to preserve human life by educating ourselves about the dangers of environmental health risks and working to prevent them for the sake of all humanity. As heirs to the tradition of stewardship that goes back to Genesis and teaches us to be partners in the ongoing work of creation, we cannot accept this escalating destruction of our environment and its effect on human health and livelihood. It is our sacred duty to alleviate environmental degradation and human suffering it causes instead of despoiling our air, land, and water.
This is from the Christian Testament. It's 1 Corinthians 10:23 through 24. Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. Nobody should seek their own good, but the good of others.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا جعلناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the ever merciful, O mankind, behold, we have created you out of a male and female, and have made you into nations and tribes, so that you may come to know one another, learn from each other, and build community together. Indeed, the most noble among you in the sight of God is the most pious and the most mindful and conscious of him. God is surely all-knowing, all-aware.
Sorry about that. This verse speaks to the ethos of Islam and how it is just like any other Abrahamic religion, a religion of peace and unity between all people. We all share common bounds. In these ayat, God brought down, he said that he created men and women, and he created us of different tribes in different areas so that we meet each other and learn from one another how to create sustainability, how to learn from each other. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious, Allah says in the Quran, in the last revelation in the chapter Al-Heights, Araf, and eat and drink as we have permitted, but do not be extravagant. God does not like extravagant people. And do not mischief and do no mischief on the earth after it has been set in order. That will be the best for you if you have faith. Our Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, The world is beautiful and verdant, and verily God, be he exalted, has made you his stewards in it, and he sees how you acquit yourself. If a Muslim plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift, sadaqah, for him. So we Muslims, and I think all people on the earth, we are children of Adam and Eve. We say Adam and Hawa. So we are all brothers and sisters, and we have all same values. We should really appreciate and be thankful to each other. If we don't thank to each other, then we cannot also thank to God, because this is the first step, to be thankful to each other. And then if we do that step, we will be thankful to God. Thank you.
If we say religion is opposed to science, we lack knowledge of either true science or true religion, for both are founded upon the premises and conclusions of reason and must bear its test. All things are interconnected and flourish according to the law of reciprocity. The principle underlines the Baha'i understanding of the way the universe works and the responsibilities of humanity.
Raise the mic a little. Whoa, I'm gonna knock everything down. Thank you. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe. Now you know it, sing it with us. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe. Teach peace, and people will find the way. Teach peace, and people will find the way. Teach peace, and people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe. Stand together, and people will find the way. Stand together, and people will find the way. Stand together, and people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe. Give love, and people will find. We've got to give love, and people will find the way. Give love, and people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe. Give light, and people will find. We've got to give light, and people will find the way. Give people will find the way. People will find the way, I do believe.
The responsive reading this evening is taken from a short prayer by Francis of Assisi, a medieval Christian monk. Father Richard Rohr describes him in this way. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of ecology, animals, nonviolence, and peacemaking, because he understood that the entire circle of life has a great lover at the center of it all. In Francis' world, the sun, moon, animals, plants, and elements are all shown reverence and even personal subjectivity as brother and sister. He refused to exclude anything. He went to the edge, to the bottom. He kissed the leper. He loved the poor. He wore patches on the outside of his habit so that everybody would know that's what he was like on the inside. He didn't hide from his shadow. He wasn't an intellectual. He didn't begin with universal philosophies and ideas and abstractions. For Francis, there was one world, and it was all sacred.
O Holy One, you created the world. Through our own unconsciousness, we have lost the beautiful relationship we once had with the rest of creation. Help us to see that by restoring our relationship with you, we will also renew our connection with all your creation. May the order you originally established be once again restored to the whole world.
Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strummed, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings. No voice can hope to hum, struck by the sounds before the dawn. I knew the night had gone, the morning breeze like a bugle blew. Against the drum of dawn, lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings. No voice can hope to hum. I stood unwound beneath the skies, and clouds unbound by laws, the crying rain like a trumpet sang, and asked for no applause. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings. No voice can hope to hum. The last of leaves fell from the trees and clung to a new love's breast. The branches bare like a banjo moan to the winds that listen best. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of streams. No voice can hope to hum. I gaze down in the river's mirror and watched its winding strum. The water smooth ran like a hymn, and like a harp did hum. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings. No voice can hope to hum.
We have two speakers this evening. Our speaker, the first one, is Reverend Yael Lockman, minister of First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ in Salem, Oregon, and Charlie Abrams, a sophomore at Grover Cleveland High School in Southeast Portland. In addition to a Master's of Divinity degree from Pacific School of Religion, Yael Lockman holds a master's degree in ecology and environmental biology from the University of California, Santa Cruz. She brings to her ministry a passion for restoring humanity's sacred covenant with the earth itself and with all creatures. Charlie Abrams is a 15-year-old climate activist who has been passionately fighting for climate change since he was 9 years old. He worked on climate education, statewide climate policy, national climate legislation, and leads strikes and marches across Oregon. He is currently working on a documentary film after co-founding the Affected Generation, a youth film organization.
Good evening. It is a beautiful sight to look out and see you all gathered together. I wish you could stand here and see that. So I was driving here tonight, I was reflecting on what a beautiful, beautiful autumn this has been. I'm brand new to Oregon, and people keep warning me, I don't know what that it's not always like this in autumn. Is that true? Yeah, right? They tell me that often the winter rains start so soon they knock all the beautiful leaves off the trees, but not this year, right? I've noticed that particularly in the mornings when I'm driving to work, it's all I can do to keep my eyes on the road as I try and drink in all this beauty, right? Maybe this is happening for you too, that early morning sun sort of slanting through the stained glass leaves, and all I really want to do is soak it in and give thanks and call it a day. That seems like a day's work to me, right? Yeah. But of course, I usually have the radio on while I'm driving to work, right? So even as that morning sun is streaming through the leaves, also news of the world is streaming through the radio at the same time, right? Streams in with tales of climate disasters and refugees, yet another species gone forever, another irreplaceable parcel of earth laid waste. So lately, I've noticed that when I have this experience, I find myself thinking of the writer E.B. White. You probably know him as the author of many beloved children's books. He's also a shrewd observer of the human condition. And in 1969, 50 years ago, he uttered these memorable words. He said, "If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy, right? If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I arise in the morning torn between a desire to improve or savor the world, and a desire to improve or save the world, and a desire to enjoy or savor the world, he writes. And this makes it hard to plan the day. Yeah. I've heard that White himself was a little skeptical about organized religion. But tonight, I want to be so bold as to claim him as a kindred spirit for us, because I think that he perfectly articulates our own dilemma and our call as people of faith, right? On the one hand, we must always root our prayers, root our spiritual practice in gratefulness, yeah? This is the core practice that simultaneously opens our hearts to the gift of life and brings us into right relationship with the giver, right? The source of life itself. And at the same time, we are called always to act, right? To act on behalf of the earth itself and on behalf of the earth's most vulnerable, especially the beings and the places that have no vote and no voice. And it seems to me that the temptation, even for people of faith, is to draw upon our faith traditions when it comes time to savor and give thanks for the gifts of this world. We do that, I think, pretty well. Right? But when it comes time to head out the door and into action, into the saving side of the equation, I think it can be tempting for us to leave our faith practices behind, right, in the sanctuary, as we join the efforts out there to save the earth and all her creatures. Now, of course, there is nothing at all wrong with the saving tools of the scientific and secular world, right? We absolutely need those gifts and those tools for the work ahead. But I'm pretty sure that as people of faith, we have an additional gift to offer to our collective effort to save this world that we love. A gift that is particularly necessary now that the work ahead seems so overwhelming, right? As communities of faith, I believe we are called to offer this gift, the conviction that we are not alone in this, right? We are never all alone. No matter how dire the predictions of climate catastrophe, no matter how daunting the odds of success, we are called to walk into the world, to work in the world, as we carry in our hearts, in our very bodies, our openness to the divine presence. And don't get me wrong, I want to be very clear here that it is absolutely possible to go out and care for the earth in all kinds of saving and beautiful ways without ever intentionally invoking the presence and the power of God, right? We can do that. Beautiful people all over the world are doing this every day. But I am convinced that this world needs everything we've got, right? Every practice, every spiritual practice that we have honed over millennia, right? And what a sacred gift that is, that we have to offer, a host of all our spiritual practices that open us to the very source of life itself, the divine source of strength and courage and discernment and, yes, even power, right? The very presence and power of God, a power that is always offering to work with us and through us on behalf of the world. I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty good tool we have in our collective toolbox. But here's the catch. There's always a catch, isn't there? Now, your mileage may vary here, but it has been my experience that this divine presence is so gentle, so respectful, that God will not override our free will. Yeah? Now, one day, maybe I'll get to ask why God thought this was a great idea. Most days I'm not so sure about human free will, right? Yeah, but it seems to be true. For better or worse, God does not force God's self on us, even for our own good. God will not override our human decisions, even the most terrible ones. God seems to stand ready, awaiting our invitation. And if this is true, then it seems to me that our intentional spiritual practice might make all the difference. We can invite the presence and power of God to guide and strengthen us as we set out on behalf of the earth. And when we choose to stand in the midst of our pain and our fear, when we choose to stand in the midst of our collective global cry of lament and let our hearts break open to God, friends, that is the moment, that's the moment when we become the doorway through which the divine presence rushes in to guide and strengthen us, rushes in to work through us in whatever conditions, in whatever broken place on all the earth we find ourselves. And I believe that our willingness to practice this, to practice inviting the presence and power of God, just might give us the courage and the strength we need to act together in the face of overwhelming obstacles. So I thought we might just go ahead and practice together tonight. Are you willing? Should we do that? Let's do that together. If you're willing, I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And begin to just notice your breath. Sometimes we like to think of that breath as the Spirit of God, right, that breathes in us. And as you receive that gift of breath, see if you can invite God to be with you in this time of prayer. Whatever that divine presence feels like to you. Maybe there's an image, whatever that presence looks like to you. Welcome that presence now. The presence of the one who is always as near as your next breath. The one who has loved you from before always and who knows the unique gifts that you alone can offer this world. And now see if you can call into your mind's eye the earth itself, the earth that needs you, and ask God to show you a particular part of the earth that is in need of healing. Any part. It might be a place, it might be a creature, a watershed, any being or habitat that is calling out for help and healing tonight, trusting that whatever comes to mind has your name on it. That's your call. And as you hold this situation in your heart, gently ask whether there is anything you yourself are being called to do to support God's healing work in this situation. No need to force an answer. It's enough to just be quietly receptive. Just holding the question with openness and curiosity, knowing that you can come back to this place of listening anytime. Maybe take a moment to just make a mental note of anything you might be called to do in response to this situation. And finally, I invite you to take a moment to see if you can envision all the others all around the world who are even now working together to heal this situation and others. Maybe you can see this community of compassion and prayer encircling the earth, holding all beings in the healing light of God, knowing that you are not alone. Not ever alone. And as you gently return your attention to this sacred space, I offer this prayer. Friends, as we set out together to savor and to save this world, may we remember to call with confidence upon the presence and the power of the one who, moment by moment, creates, sustains, and blesses all life and every life, now and forever, world without end. Amen.
I'm Charlie Abrams. I'm a 16-year-old youth climate activist and cinematographer, and my journey started when I was just 9 years old. I was in a 4th grade class with some other classmates when a student that was in that class gave a presentation about climate change, whatever that meant. I really had no idea about the subject or about the causes, effects, and solutions, which is what he was talking about. But I was interested, and I was motivated mostly by fear, but still motivated. There were going to be droughts, sea level rises, wildfires, ocean acidification. I didn't even know what that meant. And I was still motivated by the fear of the subject. So I began to do more research, to get more educated, and with that friend whose name is Jeremy, who I've grown up with the climate activism I've done with, we were able to research this complex crisis and learn what we could do about it. So we started small with what our advocacy would have been at 9 years old, and we started a blog since we thought that was a way we could reach people online and give our perspective on an issue as complex and diverse as climate change. So we had a blog called 2 Green Leaves where we gave our perspective from the affected generation. And that was a tagline that would grow close to what we began of our advocacy. Now, after we went past 9, going into our 5th and 6th grade year, we were still extremely young, yet we wanted to have a larger effect in the global climate crisis. So we got on some radio stations and eventually had some organizations that were climate nonprofits reach out to us and did some work with them. And that was how we really got involved in the complex issue that is climate change. We did some climate advocacy with them, working on the political side of climate change and working on a variety of subjects, always emphasizing our youth voice. And this was a very young organization that we were working with. Some of the people most of them were in their 20s. They were outside of college, and yet they were still almost all double our age, which is funny to look back on for the stuff that we were talking about. But we worked with them a lot, and that was our start to climate advocacy, was with them. We testified down in Salem for a number of climate bills. We lobbied and organized events. A video of Jeremy testifying eventually got reposted on Leonardo DiCaprio's Instagram and gained a lot of views online, which was cool to see our advocacy get recognized and known at a really young age. And something that's interesting to look back on is some of these lobby days had one other youth that was with us who was, I think, like 25, and we were 11 years old. And now, looking at the lobby days that we've been having this year, there have been over 100 youth and 700 adults. So seeing that stark difference between when we thought that we were alone out there and we didn't know of other activists and environmentalists like us, to now where we're surrounded by a community of advocacy and people who care as much as we do about our future. Going past the 5th and 6th grade, we started to get more active in the realm of climate advocacy. We started testifying in front of school boards and working with our own school districts to get climate change something taught in the school curriculum. This was something that I worked on in 2016 to get climate change taught in the curriculum. And this was something I was extremely passionate about because I came across the idea of climate change by chance. If Jeremy hadn't talked about that entire subject in my 4th grade class, I might not even have known about it as much as I do to this day. So that was something interesting to me because it would be fueling the next generation of climate activists. And by next generation, I'm only talking about a few years below me. Because people starting at a young age are able to grow up in this community and see the effects that they can have at the young age that they're starting out with. So I testified in 6th grade to the Portland Public School Board to teach climate change in the curriculum, an idea that was new to PPS but had happened in a lot of other countries around the globe. And after I testified, the bill actually passed, and I was so excited about it, I didn't look back on it for 3 years. And now it's 2019, and I am, which I'll get back to in a second, but it's something that is also very surprising that I'm going to touch on. But going past 6th grade, we started to work even more with more climate advocacy, working on more climate policies like clean energy jobs, which has been a large part of my advocacy, since in my opinion it is the largest effect that we can have as a state on curbing our carbon emissions. And that is something extremely important to me because I don't have as much time as I did in 4th grade. And so I have to be using my time spent on subjects that are going to have large effects. And for me, clean energy jobs is one of those. And that is just one side of my climate advocacy that was happening in 2017 when I was a 7th grader. And eventually we started getting more recognized for our efforts, winning some international climate awards across the globe, and what I was able to learn from these awards was the other youth out there. I was looking back to when I was a 6th grader, and it was me, Jeremy, and the other 25-year-old that we were with, and seeing us there made us feel slightly alone, that there were not other youth activists out there. But after going through the process of these climate awards and knowing the other youth that were winning these prizes, we were able to see the diverse community that was happening across the globe. And these youth that I've met through these awards, I've came really close with. People from Tanzania to Kenya to Bali, Indonesia to France to Santiago to Canada. The list goes on of how diverse these people are and the insane effects that they're having on our future in climate activism. And after meeting these youth, I began to be more inspired in what I could do to solve the climate crisis as I would still see it back then. Because in my eyes, an issue as large as climate change still felt a lot smaller when we were only focusing on the solutions. And that was the largest thing that I've seen throughout my advocacy, is if I had been focusing on the negative effects, on the depressing statistics that we're constantly reading in the news, and in the effects that people across the globe are feeling, I probably would not be as active as I am today. But I focused on the solutions, and that is what has been most inspiring to me and how I've been able to inspire other youth and people through my advocacy. And that is something that I think a lot of people need to focus on, is the solutions. Because once you focus on the solutions, you learn about what you can do in your part in whatever you're passionate about. For me, I'm most passionate about climate change and the issue of solving it, because I feel like it's going to be the largest problem that I'm going to have to deal with, and it's also something that people across the globe are going to have to deal with. Since climate change isn't an issue that is defined by borders, it's something that ironically is unifying us, especially as youth in different parts of the globe. And this unification of climate change is something that I really began to know over this past year. On one of the projects that I've been working on recently, I was able to start it back in this summer when I was lucky enough to go to Scotland to speak on a board of other climate activists. And on this board, I was there for a week. I was meeting the other people that were at this event and was lucky enough to meet the most grateful and smartest and kindest people that I knew that were all from Santiago, Chile. And it was these 12 youth that were still and continue to inspire me to this day for what they've been through and what they've chose to do with that. They were people who I still talk with and am extremely close to, and am working with them right now on a project that I've been doing for a while with them, which is called Supporting Santiago. And this was a project that didn't deal with climate change, which was extremely new to me because all of my advocacy has been centered around the climate crisis. So working on an issue that doesn't have to deal with that was almost refreshing to me in a way I wouldn't expect. But this project, Supporting Santiago, was about the political unrest that's been happening in Santiago and in other Chilean cities. And a lot of people know about this, but a surprising amount, unfortunately, don't, because the media attention behind it hasn't been the best, which is surprising for what is happening down there. And I know firsthand everything that's been going on in Santiago from my friends, from the videos, from the photos they've been sending me. And that is why it was so important to me to embark on this journey of supporting Santiago. This was a project made to raise medical supplies for the injured civilians and protesters down in Chile. And this is a huge subject that I won't go into deeply, but with all of the protests that began to turn violent, there were a lot of civilians that really needed help from outside sources. These organizations that I've been working with, such as Fetch and La Cruz Roja, haven't had the necessary medical supplies that they need, and that was why I decided to help raise that for them. And going back to my climate advocacy, if I had never done these past 6 years of climate action, I would never be working on projects like Supporting Santiago. Because it was only through this climate advocacy that I was able to see that it doesn't matter your age, but you can still have an impact on the issues that you care about. And that was why Supporting Santiago was a project that was important to me, but also something that was feasible, because I knew that I could have an impact on an issue that wasn't even directly affecting me, but it was impacting my friends. And going back to that summer when I had been on the council with other youth, I'd met these activists from across the globe, some from Santiago, some from Taiwan, some even just from Colorado and Washington, that had came there from their whole backgrounds of climate advocacy, and it continued to inspire me to embark on new projects. And one of the reasons I was on that council in the first place was from the cinematography that I've done in a number of different fields. I was working on clean energy jobs, House Bill 2020 last session, and was seeing firsthand everything that was happening. And for a lot of people that weren't on the front lines down there, there was just stuff going on that I'm still trying to process to this day, because it still feels unreal after being down in Salem week in and week out, getting my voice heard and not seeing it through the eyes of my representatives. But it was after seeing the half of the Senate walk out to not establish quorum on this bill, and to see the misinformation spread about this subject and the media attention that was not like it should be, where I found film. And finding film was something extremely important to me, because through video, I feel like is a way that we can bridge the gap between the media and from personal stories, because you can tell a whole story through documentaries and through film. And that was something that I realized being down in Salem. The media was not reporting on this as I wanted them to, and frankly, enough people were not getting told what was happening in our own state. So finding film was something huge for me, because I wanted to embark on this journey of cinematography and videography, which would end up being another large part of my advocacy, so I could share stories that were happening across the globe, from new documentaries I'm working on about supporting Santiago to completely different projects. There's so much that we can teach and show people through film. And that even goes back to the climate in the curriculum that I talked about at the start in 6th grade. Like I said, I didn't look back on that for 3 years, but this year I am for a number of reasons. And the largest being that the Portland Public School Board did nothing to enact this bill for 3 years. And that was something super surprising to me, because as a 6th grader working on this bill, I had no idea it would be that complicated, that I would now be a sophomore looking back on what I had done 4 or 5 years ago. So now we're working again on this bill, and now I'm bringing film into it, using the past of my climate advocacy and videography to bridge the gap again, to show the people on the board that what they're missing out on by not including climate change in the curriculum. And this year, we are finally excited to announce that PPS will be having a climate change curriculum based into the school board, teaching over 60,000 kids the basis on climate change, but most importantly, the solutions of what they can do about this issue. And this was something that I now want to finally touch on, is the solutions to climate change. And I use the word solutions intending that we are not going to solve every aspect of this issue right now, because I've worked on a lot of different sides of it, and there is a lot going on, from the impacts to the pollution to the people who are dealing with this issue to policy, which is a whole realm in itself. There is a lot going on with this issue, but luckily that means there's a lot that you can do about it. And a lot of that is supporting other youth like me, but there's also different journeys that each of you can embark on yourself. And climate advocacy is something that obviously you can do at any age. I've worked with people that are more than 80 years old on subjects such as film and organizing people for strikes and marches, which is a large part of climate advocacy nowadays, and working with people even younger than myself, which has been refreshing to see other youth activists that are even younger than me after all these years. So to come away with something that you can do about this issue is there's a lot I could touch on, but I think some of the largest things is what I learned when I was 10 years old. And to put it simply, it's following what other people have already done and yet making it new to yourself. And what I mean by that is I started doing all this work with these climate organizations, and that is something that is very easy, and it's also very important for people like you to get active with. Some of these organizations are listed in the pamphlets that were passed out to everybody, including Renew Oregon, who is an organization I've done a lot of work with throughout my past 6 years. And working with these climate organizations, you can not only get educated about the solutions, but you can actually help enact these solutions. And that is something that's huge to work on, is the solutions to climate change, like I said. And there's always small impacts that you can do yourself, as in lowering your own carbon footprint, which I feel like has been drilled into a lot of people's brains by now. So I'm going to finish with one final solution that a lot of people can do, and that is helping out projects across the globe that people are already embarking on. There's so many people that are advocates like me that I've grown to know about across the globe. And there are people who honestly need a lot of help. They're climate refugees. They're people who are affected by climate change. And it's just getting active in this advocacy. You can see what you can do to help them out. For there's a lot of impacts of climate change, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And there's a lot of questions I get too about what an average person can do on climate change. And I think the largest thing to do if you want to be active on this issue is to start speaking out about it and to work with other people who know what they're talking about inside these climate organizations. And to go back on not a specific solution you can have on the climate crisis, but just something that stuck with me since I was 9, is to really be new in this crisis. It is such a large issue that you have to be true to yourself, that you have to be finding ways that you can help out through all your different individual passions that you bring to the table, that you can help out on such a large issue, and that it starts with you. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit about 2 organizations that we're supporting this evening that Jenny will be introducing with when she asks for the offertory. But right now I'd like to tell you just a little bit about each one. The first one is the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. It's a volunteer-run nonprofit that promotes sustainable practices in Lake Oswego. It hosts numerous projects and events that range from working on a city climate plan to providing information about electric vehicles and how to be sustainable in your own home. There are opportunities to volunteer or attend free events. LOSN wants to support people with their sustainability ideas. So if you're interested, we'd like you to go to their website and sign up for their monthly newsletter. And the website is printed in your program. And also, if you didn't receive the resource guide when you came in, we do have some of those for you. And there are many ways that you can be involved. The second recipient of the offertory this evening is the Oswego Lake Watershed Council. That's also a locally organized nonprofit organization to improve the Oswego Lake watershed. Our vision is a healthy system of streams, wetlands, riparian forests, and local trees that support good water quality, productive habitat for native plants and animals, and enhanced quality of life. Community volunteers support habitat restoration projects, protect and plant trees throughout the city, and provide education about urban ecology. You can also visit their website to find out how you can participate. And this evening, we're also asking you to make a personal pledge. You may have noticed when you came in at the end of the pews, there's a wicker basket, yes, thank you, Monica, that has pens and a specific kind of paper. The paper actually has seeds embedded in it. So we'd like you to take a piece of paper, take a pen, write a pledge on the paper, and then take it home and plant it. And stapled to each piece of seeded paper are the instructions for how to do that. So please go ahead and take a moment to do that now, if you would.
Thank you so much for making those pledges, and thank you especially to Yael and to Charlie for just reminding us, first of all, of just our deep connection to the earth and how faith is our grounding point and our motivation point to move us out there. And Charlie, thank you so much for sharing about so many of your experiences in advocacy and just reminding us of the many ways that we can get involved. All of us have just made some commitments for how we want to support our earth and care for our earth. And in addition to that, as Esther said, we have an opportunity tonight to give financially to some of the organizations in our local community that are working for sustainable abundance. And so, as Esther mentioned, our offering tonight will be divided between the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network and the Oswego Lake Watershed Council. There are a variety of ways that you can give this evening. One is when the offering plates come by in a minute, you can put in cash or a check made out to LOUCC. As you'll see in your program, there's also an opportunity to text to give if that's how you like to give. So type in the number on your phone and the dollar amount you'd like to give. And then, as Esther mentioned, the websites are in the bulletin, and you can go online if you want to donate directly to the organizations via credit card. So friends, we have been given so much by God. Our lives are full of abundant blessings, and through our pledges and through our offerings, we give thanks and give thanks for those blessings and return some of them to God. So let us with joy present the offerings of our life and labor to God.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old day, who shall live another day? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh brothers, let's go down, down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old day, who shall live another day? Oh Lord, show me. Oh sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old day, who shall live another day? Oh Lord, show me the way. Oh children, let's go down, come on down. Oh children, let's go down to the river to pray. River to pray.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and a special thanks to everyone who helped to lead and participate in worship, and a really special thank you to our planning team who have worked since June on our service. So let's give them a round of applause. Many thanks to them. And thank all of you for being here tonight. And as we prepare to leave, I just invite you to go forth tonight in a spirit of gratitude for all the abundance that's been given in our lives, to go forth also with a spirit of service as we go out to serve our earth and each other. And let us go forth in a spirit of love as we remember God's peace, shalom, salam for all of us.
I'd just like to close with a prayer for our country. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have given of what they have, so that we might have a nation that is holy. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with only justice and with only compassion. Help us all to appreciate, as we have this evening, the gift of one another, and to respect the many ways, many we have learned about this evening, that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound. Amen.